My name is Charlie Chividgen. If I haven't had the pleasure of meeting you guys yet, I am the founder of Every Mother's Advocate, and we're so grateful that you guys have joined on this Monday afternoon. You could be doing 100 other things, and somehow you people have chosen to be here. So we're excited. We want to welcome Adrien Lewis. He is the Chief Innovation Officer of CarePortal. If you don't know what CarePortal is, you're about to find out. And it's a very valuable tool that almost all of you guys have access to, and we want to make that very known. And so that you guys can be even more equipped to advocate for more moms who are in crisis right in your communities. So let's get started. Adrien, thank you so much for being here.
Oh, it's an honor to be asked. Thank you, Charlie.
We really appreciate your time. I will do a quick intro for Adrien. He has spent the first 10 years of his career serving as a business development professional in healthcare, technology, and different education companies. In 2007, God turned Adrien's life right side up, as he would call it, on a missions trip to Haiti with his wife, Cynthia. And this began their 3 years of volunteering with the Global Orphan Project, also known as the GO Project. In 2010, God asked Adrien to leave the business world and advocate full-time for orphaned and abandoned children's with GO Project. This call ultimately led him to becoming a foster and adoptive parent and developing CarePortal as a platform to facilitate the cooperation of local churches and agencies for local children and families in crisis. So Adrien, we would love for you to just orient us, lay the foundation. Who are you? Why are you doing what you're doing, and what led you there?
I appreciate that. Good morning, everybody. It's good to see your faces. Yeah. So as Charlie read, my wife and I went into that trip to Haiti in 2007, knowing who Jesus was. We went into that trip wanting to believe in him, trying to shape our life around some things that he shaped his life around. But I wouldn't say that we were followers when we went into that trip. I would say that we went into that trip as believers and we came out as followers.
Yeah.
And what it means when you become a follower is that you start to make life decisions that might seem radical to the world, right? So that things change for you. They don't make sense. They don't add up.
Right.
And for us, the first radical change was that my wife became a stay-home mom. I'm a super transparent guy, so I'm just going to be totally real here. We are a blended family. We had just been married a few months earlier than that. And she became a stay-home mom to my biological kids. And about 1.5 years later, their biological mom went to jail. And my wife was like, Mom, like she's mom. God was preparing us for that.
Yeah.
So our journey into this crazy world of loving on the orphan started with my wife becoming mom to children that she didn't bear. And on that path, when I left my company in 2009, 2010, God spoke to us very clearly that we were supposed to take the foster care class. I didn't even know what foster care was in 2010. I'm just telling you, I'm not proud of it, but that's what it was.
Yeah.
And come to find out, God had a bigger call for us. It was to grow our family from 3 kids to 6. The last 3 we adopted through the foster care system. I will tell you that our lives have been transformed inside and out. We know what love is like we couldn't have known any other way. And God has used that thing inside my house to light a fire for how we can help churches and people around the country and the world to care for the most vulnerable child in their midst. And so CarePortal exists to help make that happen over and over and over and over again.
We really appreciate your transparency and just ability to really reflect back on the seasons that I like how you shared that we are walking with God, we believe the things, and like following him looks and feels a lot different when we take meaningful risk. And it was for you and Cynthia a season of making really meaningful risk and positively disrupting your lives and your norm. and having no idea when you took that trip
Hmm.
to Haiti what God would call you further into. And I love that how God does that, that he gives us like the next few steps, because sometimes I think if he painted the fullness of the picture of where he was leading us, we would often feel ill-equipped,
No,
incapable.
worse than that. Get me off that bus.
Yeah, I don't want to do it. You
No
got the wrong
way.
person.
That's right. That's right. If God had told me 15 years ago I would be doing what I'm doing now, I would have been like, I'm out of here. I care
Yeah,
too much about making money
yeah,
and being the guy and all that kind of stuff. There's no chance I would have said yes. So he just gave me
totally.
a little bit, just a little
Yeah.
bit.
And I
Mhm.
think a lot of the women on this call and those that are gonna listen to it
Mm.
operate in that space. Are in ministry, some are in nonprofit work, many are in the corporate world, but all of them have stepped into this space to say, I want to take meaningful risk and I
Mm.
want to walk alongside moms and kids who are in crisis and believe fully in the value of prevention, and that we want to start there. We want to respond to this very national global crisis with this family first ethos and
Mm.
reimagining with God and co-creating with God as to what that looks like.
That's right.
So we're going to jump into actually CarePortal and the technology of CarePortal, what that looks like, how we can access it. But before we do, we want to talk a little bit about just the systemic issue of family separation in the
Mm.
United States. So all of the women on this call in some way, shape, or form are serving moms who are at risk of losing their child into foster care, or a mom who has a child in foster care and is working to be reunified. So most of us work alongside of local foster care providers, the Department of Children and Families, Child Protective Services, a lot of crisis pregnancy centers that are all warmly welcoming this demographic that we serve. What is something as agencies that are parachurch, para
Mm.
agency, para organization, what is something we should know when we're working
Mm.
with and collaborating with the front lines of child welfare?
Yeah, and that's a good question. Before I take my swing at it, I just
Mm-hmm.
want to say I really appreciate you ladies
Mm-hmm.
for how you are taking meaningful risk.
Yeah.
I don't know exactly what happened to get you from not doing this to doing this, but the fact that you are giving of yourself,
Mm-hmm.
not just your time, but the emotional investment, probably some financial investment,
Yeah.
is significant. It's significant to the women that you're serving and their children, but it's also significant to God. And
Mm-hmm.
I just want you to feel what I'm saying. It matters. So thank you for doing what
Yeah.
you're doing. I would say for most of the people in child welfare, most who serve in one way or another as caseworkers or whatever their role is, like most of them, they feel a calling.
Mm-hmm.
Like they are get into this work because they actually want to make a difference in the lives of people who are hurting.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes that's because they were hurting themselves. Sometimes it's because they've seen a lot of hurt in their life. Sometimes it's the Lord puts it there. Sometimes it's just they want to do good. Like there's all kinds of motives that get them there. But
Right.
it's rare. Like I guess the point I'm saying is it's rare that someone would get into child welfare and not actually have a desire to help improve the lives of the families that they're working with.
That's good.
The unfortunate thing is that the longer you stay in it, the more burnt you get.
Mm-hmm.
And the harder it is to stay tethered to that initial motive. And the system like has a mind of its own, like any system does, and it just sucks people in.
Mm-hmm.
And so sometimes you end up coming across these caseworkers or leaders or whoever, and now it's about sustaining the system as
Mm-hmm.
opposed to advocating for the people who are in the system. And
Right.
that's not always the case. I'm just not going to paint a picture that it's perfect and it's rosy and it's all good, because it's not. There's lots of brokenness because people are broken.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but if you're in the midst of it and you are dealing with a disgruntled caseworker, or you're trying to figure out why the heck is this mom battling these things still? Like,
Yeah.
why does she have to do these things? Like, why is that happening? Remember, the system is broken
Yeah.
because it's full of people. And remember, there is a lot of people who want to do good for
Mhm.
their reason in those trenches.
Mhm.
And if you can pour into them, it will make a difference in the
Mhm.
lives of the women and children that you are serving.
Mhm. Yeah, so much of the ministry that we do is very much to the child welfare
Amen.
workers, because you're nailing it on the head in terms of these are oftentimes overworked and underpaid
Mhm.
individuals. And we would go out on a limb to say they don't really have ulterior motives when they're coming into this space. Like, I love how you painted that picture that these are women that care, or men and women, professionals that care deeply about people. And it's also the thing that makes the system very broken, is that it's
Mhm.
filled with people. Our
Mhm.
systems are broken. And for us to, I mean, my husband and I fostered for 2.5 years ourselves. And I remember the turnover of caseworkers that we got and experienced. And a caseworker would get hired and she would come for her first home visit with us, and she would just be skipping and beaming, so excited to begin this work. And within 3 months, it was like a different person
Mhm.
comes in that is just carrying the weight of the world. And so for us to serve alongside of child protective service workers who see and experience and live out really hard things, and not to, even bring our own biases or judgments or assumptions against the people that we serve, but to love them and to serve them. And this will only love and serve the family
Mhm.
even more. Um, what is in your experiences, Adrien, what are some of the biggest misconceptions that you can think of
Mhm.
when it comes to foster care, even adoption, family separation, child welfare system? I know that's a loaded question, but
Sure.
when you think of misconception, what is something that, like, how can we lead with education and like correct statistics, or correct or reorient correct statistics around things that may be totally wrong in a myth?
Yeah, this has levels to it. So I'm gonna try to approach it from a couple different seats at the table, just
Hmm.
to get in people's shoes and feel it out from where they're coming from. At the highest level, something that we learned a few years back is that the majority of kids who come into foster care are not there because they have horrible parents who are abusing them,
Right.
which is exactly what I believed when I first learned about the foster system. I
Right.
actually believed that these kids were all victims of abuse
Hmm.
from nasty people.
Hmm.
I'm not proud of that belief, but that's what I thought. And the
Hmm.
truth is that the majority of kids are there due to neglect related to poverty.
Hmm.
Like, that's the primary reason why children are being removed in our country, like way over 50% of the time.
Hmm.
And so if we can help other people know that truth that I didn't know 15 years ago, then they'll begin to shape a different narrative in their mind, and
Sure.
the value they will start to see in the people who are part of the system will go up. And
Yeah.
so one of the things that we can do that's like at the top of the list is, how do we help people see people's value? And if we do that well, both the ones we're serving directly and the ones in our midst, then everything changes. So
Hmm.
that's from the one seat. Another seat, as a foster parent, uh, I initially thought that I was in control of the process.
Wow.
Like, I initially thought that things were going to go exactly how people told me they were going to go, and
Hmm.
that I could influence very directly the outcome of this whole thing. And, again, to be personal, the first two kids who came to our house, Benjamin and Curtis, they came with their parental rights terminated.
Wow.
So from the moment we got the phone call, the expectation was set for us that these boys need a permanent home.
Yeah.
Are you willing to be that permanent home? And my wife and I prayed. We actually heard from the Lord in the process, and we said yes. And so 5 o'clock on Friday, May 12th, 2012, these two boys, Benjamin and Curtis, show up on my driveway.
Mm.
And I became dad from minute one.
Yeah.
Okay. And 7 months later, Benjamin and Curtis left my house.
Wow.
Because the judge decided that a grandma who was previously not an option was now an option.
Mm-hmm.
So I just want you to imagine what it might be like to bring some kids home from another country, even
Yeah.
to believe that they're yours. And then 7 months later, somebody say, no, they're going back. Most people don't think that's going to happen to them.
Right.
Most people think that it's going to work out the way that they planned. And I think some of the grace and awareness we can create for foster parents is to say, like, you're not in control of what
Mm-hmm.
other people are going to decide, but you can make the best use of every day that those kids and their parents are in your midst. Like,
Mm-hmm.
how do you have influence to create the best possible, whatever the outcome is for those folks?
Mm-hmm.
And that's not an easy thing to swallow. It's not easy. And so when people get frustrated with foster parents because they are controlling, or they get burnt out, or they don't want anything to do with the biological family, a lot of it's self-preservation.
Yeah.
So when I was able to let go of this particular outcome is going to be what it is, or else it's failure. When I was
Mm-hmm.
able to let go of that, God could use us in much more significant ways than we could even imagine. But I had to let go. My family had to let go of that control.
Yeah. How do you, as you're talking about it, EMA is so focused on prevention, as you know.
Mhm.
And that doesn't always mean, even though our name is Every Mother's Advocate, that doesn't always mean we're advocating for every mom to get her child back. There are some clients, moms, families that we serve that at the end of the day, at the end of her time in our program, we, for one reason or another, deem and believe that this mom may never be able to provide a safe, stable, and nurturing home for their child. It's usually connected to substance abuse or severe mental health. And so even in that journey, we do a lot of training and conversation around how do we still put like that power back into the mom's hands where she gets a voice in that process and guiding her. Like, she's still the hero, we're the guide every time. And so how can we, you just talking about some of the misconceptions around poverty, and then the lens of foster parents. There's foster parents on this call. Some of our advocates are foster parents. Many of our advocates are adoptive parents, and have all kind of had that awakening moment. How does it not feel like talk to us a little bit about, we're operating on different sides of the same crisis. These are, even though there can be frustrations, I think, against both parties on either side of the crisis, because you have some, family friendly, family first ethos minded, prevention hungry churches, organizations, individuals. And then you have other people that might fall on the other side of the spectrum that would be quicker to remove, and more on the, as long as a child has a safe home, a Christian home. So how do we navigate those waters in a way that is still collaborative and still really affirming and dignifying of both parties that are operating on both sides of the crisis?
Well, I have a very easy answer, because this is a very easy problem, right? So
Mm-hmm.
here we go. It's super complex. There's no easy button here. There's like, this is complex. So I guess the first thing I'm trying to settle in my brain is, we're not going to be able to make this simple.
Mm-hmm.
And so if we expect it to be simple, then we're going to continue to be frustrated. We're just not going to be able to make it simple. I go back to being in court So the boys I ended up adopting were not the first set. It was the third or fourth set of kids we took in our house. And I remember being in court when the judge made a decision.
Mm-hmm.
I remember her saying about the father, based on code 74521, you are unfit to be a parent.
Yeah.
Based on code 33976, you are unfit to be a parent. And she did that like 5 times. And it wrecked me.
Yeah.
I mean, it wrecked me to be thinking about how hard it would be for me to say those words, to make that decision.
Yeah.
That would be miserable. I would never want to do that. So when you talk about sometimes it's best for children not to go back to their biological mom, that is best sometimes, but it's not simple. It is hard. So for us who have an opportunity to lead and to influence and to help other people understand that it's just not simple, telling the stories from different perspectives than your own,
Right.
and telling the stories from a different perspective than the person that you're talking to is going to help them see, oh, I would not want to be over there. So let me have some empathy for whoever's perspective it was that I was having a hard time with.
Mm.
As I think about like how my wife and I have grown through this, when we lose our empathy, everybody suffers.
Right.
Even when hard decisions have to get made, we have to maintain our empathy.
Mm. That's good. Where do you think the church is? We see the church invading this space in a really positive way. And even though we hear a lot of the doomsday information, most times that we're doing a bad job and all of our systems are broken and there's kids, the number of kids entering into the system every year increasing, and we all need to just do better. In that same vein, there's incredible work happening.
Sure.
And God's on the move. And he's doing it through churches and organizations like CarePortal. What is an area that the church, you believe in your experiences and in your interactions with the church, can improve as a responder in this space? What do you think are things that like we as a church as a whole can improve in this area?
Yeah, at first I want to affirm what you're saying. The church is moving. It hasn't stopped moving from the time it became a thing, right?
Yeah.
And so when we catch ourselves as leaders dogging on the church, we have to check that quickly.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean the church is perfect. It's not, because it's full of us. But it is true that the church is doing amazing things. And the more we celebrate that and point to those things, the better things will be. So to answer your question, how do we identify the things that are actually going well and point people to those things? That's how we can improve the church's response. I can leverage, hey, Pastor Jones, First Baptist over there is doing X, Y, and Z. And in that process, when they thought they were going to serve these families, you'll never guess what happened, Pastor Jones. Their lives were transformed in the process. Now the Smith family isn't who they used to be. Now the Smith family understands more clearly what it's like to walk with people in poverty. Now the Smith family is sharing their faith.
Yeah.
On and on and on, right? So how do we help churches become better responders?
Yeah.
We leverage the successes that exist to influence other people to do the same thing.
Right.
And some specific ways where that needs to happen, I think, is when we're dealing with cross-cultural engagement, right? So it is not uncommon that a family who is being touched by the foster system is in poverty. It's 8 times out of 10. And it's not uncommon that a family that's engaging is not from poverty, right? I don't know what the stat is there, but it's not uncommon. So how do you help them to see with different eyes, to come into the circumstances with a different thought process? And a few words have resonated inside of my spirit to guide that ship, right?
Yeah.
The words are, I believe in you.
Mm,
When I can go to a family who I'm engaging, prevention, a foster family, whatever, who's in the midst of a hard thing, when I can say to them in my eyes to their eyes, I believe in you.
mm-hmm.
I believe you are good for your kids. I believe in you.
Yeah.
All kinds of crazy things change. So if somehow we could just imprint that thought, because it's more than just the words, for the person who is the helper
Mm-hmm.
to think through and process, can I actually say I believe in you to a mom who's a drug addict? Can I actually say that?
Mm-hmm.
There's a forced process of internal growth that happens, that you have to wrestle with your own judgments about what you think good is and bad is and how people got to where they got to, right? So
Right.
even training the church responder to begin thinking, I believe in you, is a process of discipleship. It's a
Wow.
process of transformation for them. And when they begin to do it,
Yeah. It's so good. That's a big part of our advocate training, and this community of learning and practice amongst these women that are not just, it's not a touch and go response. It is I'm meeting you and I'm here to stay
yeah,
and I love you, and there's no strings attached. There's no bait and switch. Like, I want to be in meaningful relationship with you for an extended period of time. Really, as long as you'll let me be in relationship with you. And that's hard to do because I also have seen a generation of churches, you know, sometimes focus on the annual outreaches and the back to school drives, which are all good things. But oftentimes it is just the price of admission into someone's life. It
right.
does build connection, it builds trust, it builds transparency. And we experience that across all of the organizations that we affiliate with, that you have to meet the most tangible needs of people. Like, we saw Jesus do both.
Mm,
And so, CarePortal, let's dive in. Let's talk about CarePortal.
sure.
How is CarePortal doing that? Give us just a high level overview. Again, most of our affiliates are using CarePortal with the exception of Indiana, which we're working on it if anyone from Indiana is here. And just give us a high level overview. Again, these are not, our advocates are ones, they are a voice box for the needs of our moms. So
Mm,
all of our advocates know that you can at any time connect with your EMA coordinator, the person that's running your EMA program locally, and say, hey, I have this need. And then it
mm.
kind of, that request is made from there. So give us a high level overview of what CarePortal is and how it's serving families in need.
Yeah, the first thing I need to say is that CarePortal is God's idea, right?
Yeah.
For 2 years, we wrestled with how do we help the local church care for the most vulnerable children in their communities.
Mm-hmm.
And after 2 years of struggling and failing and banging our heads against the wall, we learned a bunch, but we didn't have any success from a worldly perspective.
Wow.
One day, God just gave us a vision very clearly of how to connect kids and families who are in crisis with people from the church in proximity that want to help. And
Mm-hmm.
that connection wasn't going to be just foster or adopt. It was going to be just like you just said, when I was hungry, you gave me
Mm-hmm.
something to eat. When I was thirsty, you gave me something to drink. When I was a stranger, you welcomed me. When I was naked, you clothed me. Like, that was the vision, right?
Sure.
And how do we do that at scale over and over and over again? So that, as you point out, the price of admission of helping that mom who just left an abusive relationship get a new home furnished so
Mm-hmm.
her kids don't have to sleep on the floor.
Mm-hmm.
When you do that as a stranger and you do it with love, you now have the possibility of a
Mm-hmm.
meaningful connection to take place. And that meaningful connection can lead to life transformation for everybody that's involved. And so the heart of CarePortal is to create those collisions that can turn into meaningful connections for everyone that's involved,
Yeah.
whoever is willing. But even if it doesn't happen, when in a moment a need person in crisis gets met because her house is furnished now, She doesn't have to wait another 2 months before she can get this stuff together. It's happening now.
Yeah.
That matters, right?
Mhm.
So CarePortal is the connecting technology that drives action for these local kids and families in crisis. And
Mhm.
so we partner up with agencies and schools and pregnancy centers and everybody else who's seeing the needs of kids and families that know that they're real.
Mhm.
And we build this network of churches and businesses and people who care, who are in proximity.
Mhm.
And we put the church in position to make that meaningful connection over and over and over again. And to date, over 157,000 kids have been served through churches
Wow.
and communities connected by CarePortal all across this country. And we have a
Wow.
lot of work to do still, but
Yeah.
that is a beautiful thing.
And what's the economic impact of that, Adrian? Do you know?
Oh, 50 something million. I, I haven't looked at it recently, but 50 something million.
That's incredible.
Mhm,
And it does, I want you to like go a little bit deeper on that.
mhm,
How does CarePortal, because people could look at CarePortal and say, okay, mom needs a crib, you know, something, so an organization like Avail or EMA or Claris Health put this need in to participating churches, goes out to 18, 20 churches. Someone responds, that connection happens. Mom now has crib, car seat, and she's pregnant and it feels fully equipped. And then how, like, oftentimes does it end there?
mm.
Again, we're talking to a group that is in relationship already. So that relationship is kind of checked off. How does meeting the tangible needs of families in crisis, for us in our language, moms in crisis, how does it grow our relationship building capacity? I know you touched on this a little bit, but I wanted to give
Yeah,
you a chance to go a little bit deeper.
yeah. Um, so it is, uh, I mean, I've been in situations where I've been the one in need,
Hmm.
right? Different things across my life. Um, and when I know that someone who doesn't have to care for me cares for me,
Mm,
it changes how I see myself.
wow.
Okay. And so when I start to see myself as valuable enough that someone who doesn't have to care for me cares for me, that begins to open my mind and my heart to what is possible. And the
Yeah.
word that describes that is hope.
Mm,
Okay. So when mom gets the crib, mom is getting some hope.
yeah.
And when we at CarePortal can think about how we're creating opportunities for hope to be deposited in the hearts and minds of people who are struggling,
Hmm.
that is a huge win. And in your case, you say the relationship is already there. Awesome. How might more of those relationships get created? How might more people from churches see from meeting that need for a crib,
Yeah.
realize that, oh my goodness, I actually, I want to be that person who's there all the time. Like
Yeah.
I might not be able to provide the crib 50 times, but can I get into relationship with multiple moms who have that need and then I get to stay? Like
Yeah.
that's the glimmer of vision that I'm seeing for how CarePortal and EMA begin to do some crazy things together.
Yeah. And you're also giving people that aha moment that many of
Mm,
us had, where we live sometimes in such silos and with such tunnel vision around our own problems. And it can be a very internal life that we can live. And
mm,
when you are made aware, and it can be a sobering reality check of the very real needs
mm,
that are also totally solvable, that are a mile down the street from where we live. And I think some of the value that EMA brings to the table is that we get to like train and ask hard questions around how to do real relationship with people and how to serve women and children in a way that offers sustainable and lasting change. And even when it doesn't, though, like,
right.
how do we prepare as a people that when I pour a lot of myself into someone and I check all of the boxes and I've met your every need, and I'm still not seeing change,
Mm,
how that can be really discouraging and really disheartening. So
mm,
we talk a lot about scripturally, God asks us to plant the seed, and it is he who waters and grows. And do we believe that? And at the same time, like, Jesus gives us the most beautiful picture of advocacy, and we get to emulate and model what he demonstrated for us. And so sometimes we have misconceptions of how we define the win or how we define success. Like, every mom that comes into our program has a different set of crisis.
mm.
And therefore, every mom that exits the program is going to have a different definition of stability. And so how do we refrain from getting discouraged in the times where we feel like I am spinning my wheels in mud here? This person's not appreciative. Nothing's changing. How do we respond to that, and how do we prepare for those moments when nothing changes and we feel like we've done everything we can?
Oh, I'm gonna approach this a couple different ways. First way to say, it's not easy. So don't fully beat yourself up because you've lost hope or you've been frustrated in the moment when uh, all the things you just said happened, right?
Hmm.
And you're feeling like, well, this is stupid. I'm not
Hmm.
doing this anymore, right? That's just it is sometimes. It feels that way. So when I lose hope, when I start to feel like it's not worth it, when I hear the enemy's voice say those words in my head, um, I need to get regrounded in what God thinks,
Hmm.
right? So, I mean, just think about Jesus for a moment. Dude hang is hung on a cross and brutalized.
Hmm.
And since then, most people have still rejected him,
Mm.
right? Most
Yeah.
people have not taken the gift that he's made available to them, despite all that he has done. Most people. And this guy,
Yeah.
still battles with following him fully and trusting him completely, even though I know,
Hmm.
right? So if the world struggles with taking the good gifts that they have and being grateful and transforming their lives with them, if I struggle with that,
Right.
then I have to believe that other people are going to struggle too. And so that's like back to empathy. And then when I'm really feeling it, I have to remember that this is about eternity,
Hmm.
this whole thing, their eternity and my eternity. And so when I read in Matthew 25, the scripture I just laid out for you guys, when I was hungry and thirsty and naked and a stranger and prisoner, when I read that and Jesus says, whatever you did to the least of me, these you did to me.
Yeah.
And you are the ones who are considered blessed and welcome into the kingdom, right? I have to know that my effort and my actions to love my neighbor matter for eternity, even if they don't change the outcome of that person's life today
Mm.
or ever. It still matters.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love how you just framed that up, because it's so easy to check out and forget that we ourselves, like, are still very much in need of a savior.
Mm,
And I also would challenge all of us with with this idea that it's easy to want to lean back when Jesus is asking us to lean in. And we're so grateful that he doesn't
mm,
stop advocating for us after 8 weeks of not changing, because the reality is we live our entire life um incomplete until he completes the work at this final day of making us whole and perfect and righteous. And
mm,
that's not really by any of our own doing. And so as we serve these moms with compounded crises on top of trauma, on top of history and the broken systems, to like enter into this space with what you're saying, with through this lens and deep degree of empathy and understanding and grace and hope and compassion, and to constantly just be checking ourselves and aligning ourselves back to, we're not doing this necessarily to see every life that we touch be completely transformed, but we're doing this out of obedience and a willingness, because this is what God has asked us to do. So although we very much value the metrics and the outcome based, to be able to see like how we're doing things efficiently and effectively and with excellence in the same vein, that we are expected just to do it because Jesus has quite simply asked us to do these things. So I want you to leave us with this, Adrien. And if you guys have questions, drop them in, because we're going to spend the last 10 minutes just doing some Q&A with Adrien. You can ask him anything, almost anything. Adrien, leave us with one word of encouragement or piece of advice to this group as we continue to go forward and work boots on the ground, front lines, working with moms and children who are at risk of separation. What's just one piece of advice or encouragement you want to leave us with?
So I'm looking at this other screen that has my family's picture on it.
Mm-hmm.
6 kids, my wonderful wife, 2 grandkids. And, you know, I mean, this exact weekend that just passed, I am slugging it out with my 15-year-old adopted son, who every year at his birthday, he loses it. His birthday is a trigger. And sometimes we go into crazy, dark, deep places, and sometimes it's not that bad. But that boy is wrestling every single year at his birthday. And so on one hand, I could look at it and say, like, is it even worth it? Like, what are we doing? Why is he still struggling? Yada, yada. Like, he's been in our family for 8 years, right? But I know that I know that I know that what my wife and I are doing matters.
Yeah.
It matters. And so my encouragement to you, when you think right now in your mind of a mom and kids that you've been walking with or you've walked with in the past, you may not see all the fruit today. You may not see everything that you wish was there. I just want you to hear me say that what you do matters. It matters.
It's so true. Down to the very intricate details. Every text message you send, every phone call you pick up. Yeah. That's good. Okay. Adrien, thank you so much.
Yeah, my pleasure.
One question is, what are you excited about in this next year for CarePortal as CIO? What are you trying to solve for in the next year?
Well, I'm half geek, so I could go get real geeky on you all. It is a tech platform.
It's technology, isn't it?
It's technology. So, we could go there, but I don't think that's what you want right now. I'll give you something else. So we just got this really significant grant, and it allows us to expand into 8 additional markets across the country, right?
Wow.
And these are not just like small markets. So the stats are that 25% of the kids in foster care are in only 15 markets across the country. 25%, right?
25% of kids in foster care are only in 15 markets across the country.
15 markets in the country, right?
Wow.
So Los Angeles, Chicago, Detroit, Philadelphia, New York. I could keep going down the list. We were in 7 of them. Now we're going to get to be in all 15 of those markets. And that is a huge thing, because when you're able to be in proximity to where the greatest need is, and the church rises up there, it has a ripple effect on everywhere. When the story is told that the Church of New York City and the Church of Los Angeles is moving on behalf of kids over and over and over again, like, that has power for the kingdom. Like, thy kingdom come on earth as it is in heaven.
Yeah.
That's what I'm excited about. That's right up the street from where we are right now. So that's one, I got a whole list, but I'm gonna stop there. That's one thing I'm jazzing about.
Hope wants to know, what are the tech plans for CarePortal? And that's
Are we
totally what we want to hear.
the tech plans? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So most of the requests that come in for CarePortal are tier 1 is what we call them. They're physical in nature.
Mm-hmm.
But there's also the opportunity for requests for mentors or tutors or transportation opportunities that you guys are involved in all the time,
Mm-hmm.
even for additional advocates.
Mm-hmm.
Like, how cool would it be if you could start asking churches in the CarePortal network, hey, we need an advocate in this zip code.
Mm-hmm.
How can somebody from a local church help us with that? Right.
Yeah.
That has just recently been released from a tech perspective. That's in play, and I'm excited to see you guys do that soon.
Yeah.
Another level of tech, and then I'll be done, is when you think about things like Uber, or when you think about things like Airbnb, they are in position to connect people who have one need with people who have something else,
Mm-hmm.
riders and drivers, people who have a house to rent out and people who need to stay there, right?
Mm-hmm.
And today, just about every single market in our country, Airbnb and Uber are like
Right.
they're standard issue.
Yeah.
So how do they get to that point? Well, their technology is so effective, it becomes mainstream.
Mm-hmm.
And so CarePortal has a 1.5 year roadmap ahead of us to make our platform mainstream
Mm-hmm.
so that it becomes standard issue.
Yeah.
And every community, churches and schools and businesses and child welfare agencies and EMA affiliates, they all just use a care sharing platform to help the community get connected
Yeah.
to people who are in crisis.
Yeah.
Like, that is the hill we are about to climb.
Yeah. And it's so exciting for organizations like EMA and many of the ones represented on this call, because we're the ones with need, and you guys are making that connection. CarePortal allows us to make that connection. We're really excited about tier 2 because it can be a lead generator for us as an organization to recruit for more advocates and into churches that we may or may not even be partnering with, but we can just tap into this existing network. So we love the tech side of CarePortal and just how innovative and forward thinking you guys are, and we're excited to use it. What is the right balance for meeting the needs of those we get to participate in feeding and clothing compared to helping this person find their way to meeting their needs or best approach?
Yeah. Kristen, it's a good question. I so wish that there was a very black and white concrete answer.
Mm-hmm.
You know, in scripture, Jesus says, if somebody is hungry, you feed them. He says, if somebody needs a coat, you give them yours. It also says, if somebody's not willing to work, then that's horrible, right? And so I'm not really sure where that balance is on a systemic level. Like, my mind thinks in spreadsheets and in plans that can be scalable. And I don't know how you scale the answer to this question. I don't know how it's the same every time. So I have to lead with my heart more than my mind in these scenarios, because if I just lead with my mind, I'm likely to miss. So, Lord, what would you have me do?
Yeah.
Right? Like, that's my heart question. What would you have me do? That's the best I can give you. And if somebody has more complete answer than that, I'm all ears, because I'm still trying to learn.
Yeah. And then a second part to that question is, how do you redirect yourself toward having empathy when you're tired and frustrated?
All right. So I would love for you in this moment to, if you have a pen or on your computer, write down the names of 3 people, the specific names of 3 people who know you. And if you are struggling with hope and empathy, you could tell them, I am struggling with hope and empathy.
Mm-hmm.
And they wouldn't just kumbaya and jump in and have a pity party and yada, yada. They would point you back to the Lord.
Mm-hmm.
So right now, write down 3 people who would point you back to the Lord when you tell them what you're struggling with.
Yeah. It's about the accountability and the community in that.
It's about, that's right. It's about the God-centered community.
Yeah.
Right. I'm that's what I'm trying to get to. And if
Yeah.
you know who those 3 people are and you're willing to send them a text message and say, I am struggling right now to have empathy and hope for this person, and I want to quit. They're not going to bash you. They're going to come alongside you, and they're going to help you in that moment, because where 2 or 3 are gathered, I'm with them. That's right. We were made for community. Don't forget it. Just do it.
That's so good. Well, we are going to be sending out a follow-up to everybody. And with that, we're going to include a short video that CarePortal produced of just like how it works. It's a really good, I think it's 3 minutes, and it just kind of visualizes for you exactly how the CarePortal technology works. And I just want to remind everybody that almost all of you, with the exception of Indiana right now, have access to this technology. So your EMA programs have access to this technology. So when we say, if your mom has a need, let us know, we mean it. And even beyond CarePortal, all of our EMA affiliates have benevolent fund. Like we cannot do this work without being able to meet the tangible needs of people, of families, of our community. So we use CarePortal all the time. We love CarePortal. And we want you guys to know that this resource exists to you as an advocate. So it also always creates just this almost barrier where you as an advocate, you are not responsible for meeting these needs, where you can just be in relationship with these women and them not associate you to I'm getting my needs met, but they can associate you to like you are bridging them to opportunities to get their needs met. And it kind of takes you out of being in the middle of that. So we love you guys. We cannot do this work without women like you who have seen and heard the call. Now that you know, you feel responsible. Thank you for leaning into this. So we hope that these workshops continue to just equip you to do what you do better. And how Adrien is talking about those 2 or 3 people that would hold you accountable to God and what scripture says and why we do this and why it matters. I hope that one of those people are on an EMA team somewhere, or another advocate that you are in relationship with, or your EMA coordinator, or one of us. We are always there for you as well, because we're in the trenches together. We're in the arena together. And we want you guys to feel the strength in numbers and community around you. So this concludes our workshop. Adrien, thank you so much. You could be doing a million other things with your time, and you've invested it into us this morning. So we so appreciate you. Thank you so much for jumping on and sharing, and we will learn more. Anything else you want to leave us with?
I do. I just want to encourage you all. You all as in the advocates, I have the opportunity to be around lots of organizations who are trying to do good for the people who they're serving, even in the name of Jesus. I just want to encourage you that both the leadership that you have and how you're trying to accomplish the mission by coming alongside moms in crisis in very specific relational ways, both of those things are nails. I know that my Father in heaven is pleased with the work that you're doing. And I'm excited to see it happen all over this country and to do what I can to see that take place. So thank you for this chance to be part of what you're doing.
Thanks for saying that. I hope you guys were blessed. We will talk to you guys soon.
Bye-bye.
See you next month. Bye.